Evening. This is the Georgetown Zoning Board of Appeals business meeting of Tuesday, March 5th, 2019. The Board of Appeals is going to conduct this meeting according to the rules laid out in Chapter 40A of the General Laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Robert's Rules of Order, and its own particular set of rules entitled Rules of Procedure, a copy of which is on file with the town clerk. Another copy is available from the administrative assistant at this meeting. Actually, Patty's not at this meeting tonight, but this meeting is being tape recorded for the purposes of taking minutes, and once the minutes are approved, the tape may be taped over. The first thing we're going to do tonight, well, why don't we take care of approving business and hearing minutes of February 5th, 2019. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Nope.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We're going to go ahead and, it's a little different because it's not a hearing, but we're going to invite folks who are here for 47 West Street to come up.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. I'm Attorney Mark Bobrowski. My office is in Concord. I'm substituting tonight for Paul Haverty, my partner, who had to be in Ludlow, I think.
Good evening.
And with me is Scott Cameron.
Hey, Scott.
Hey, how are you?
This is a request to modify the project from 16 units as originally proposed single-family houses to 10 duplex buildings for a total of 20 units. The applicant seeks this modification because the site cleanup has necessitated a little bit different footprint, and in order to make the economics of this work, with a reduced number of single-family homes, it's roughly the equivalent of 20 condos. Condos don't sell for as much money. Scott will give you the details of the site changes.
Good evening. My name is Scott Cameron with the Moore & Cameron Group. We're at 66 Elm Street in Danvers, Massachusetts. CSI is one of our business divisions. What I'll do, I'll walk you through. This is the most recent site plan. This reflects the preliminary plan that was approved in the original comp permit, except this is the fully engineered version that had most recently been before the Conservation Commission. So I'm going to use it as a talking point. But this was the original single-family home design with 16 singles. Came in off of West Street, T configuration with a cul-de-sac on each end. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to walk you through the changes, but there was, after the cleanup and removal of topsoil and the cleanup of the site, what ended up happening is a wetland formed in this area of the property.
So one house was.
So yeah, I'll have some illustrations to show you what the impact of that was. So what I did is here in this plan, I highlighted that wetland, right? So if you can bear with me, this is a two-family design. So instead of 16 singles, it's 22 families. Generally the same configuration. What I'll do is I'll walk you through. I just cleaned up the plans. This is just a blank slate of the property. See West Street again here. So that's the location of that new wetland. That was not there in 2001 when this was originally brought before this board. Okay, so this is post cleanup.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, please.
what is the date of that? We have April 6, 2018.
Of the concept.
This is
So,
March.
so
That's
this
this
was
one here.
sent over to us by
Yep.
Attorney Haverty as the new plan?
That's this.
So it doesn't show the wetland?
I noticed that today. I drew that on the plan because it didn't explain why this wasn't here.
Oh,
I
because
noticed
the
that.
wetland lines in the 2002 and the 2018 are the same?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
This was done last summer, and afterwards, the wetlands were flagged and surveyed, so I have that information here. This, you're right, this does not show on the version you have, but this is my explanation of why we're not proposing any dwelling in this area of the property anymore. And I'll walk you through that. All right, so. So I did this plan here, this is the original design, which I made in blue, and the new design which you received, that's the figure you have. And I just did an overlay so you can kind of see how the two compare, all right? So again, this is the area where that isolated wetland formed. There was a single-family home here in the cul-de-sac. Because that wetland is here, it became difficult to do that. Generally, the road is in the same configuration. You come in, you can see the exact same cul-de-sac, the exact same alignment here. Difference is there's no more cul-de-sac on the current design. There's now a hammerhead turnaround, which has been an acceptable fire apparatus turnaround on a recent project of similar scope. And the houses are generally, the two families are generally in the same position as the former singles. And you can see the blue popping out from beneath of where the singles were before. Very similar layout. And then the blue line here, this was the original limit of work. And then the black solid line would be the new limit of work. So a little bit more on this side, a little bit more here, but a lot less here. It's about a balance in the overall development footprint. It's about the same limit of work. And then this last plan, I just overlaid everything, so I added in now the location of that wetland. So you can see where that fits into the context of this. So we're really trying to prevent work and disturbance in that area where that wetland formed.
So again, my question would be, did you lose one or two homes when you did a single family?
So it's, this single family is right in the wetland, so
That's
one
gone,
there, so
yeah.
that's gone. And then this one here is also gone, because that's gonna be the turnaround, and we kind of turned everything, so it's really these two right
Okay.
here.
Is that limit of work, I'm sorry, Dave.
Go ahead.
Oh, you sure? The new limit of work, is that dictated by the new wetland delineation, you're
Yes.
saying? So
Yep.
that's is that, what is that,
Yeah,
the
so you-
50-foot setback or the, something from the?
Well,
How is that new limit of work?
yeah,
determined, I guess?
it's very close to the wetland here, and again, this isn't a fully engineered plan, but, taking some consideration for stormwater management in this area, we probably need something in here. But this limit of work is up really close to the wetland here, and we're pushing a little further out this way towards this wetland, and a little bit closer on this side. So we're kind of pulling it away from this area, and it fills out in some other areas.
So there was no way to shift the homes in any way, shape, or form to still get 16?
The,
No, they've jumped up.
Single
from-
families?
They've jumped up from 16 to.
yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
But what I'm
Exactly, so
I
the issue.
understand, yep, I know what
the
you're
issue
saying.
My point
is-
is, you're now asking for 20.
Yep.
Which is, okay, that's, your request is understood.
Yep.
But my question to you is, you're claiming you lost two homes, which made it difficult in
Uneconomic.
councils
Mhm.
to make money. How big are these single families proposed?
They're small, they're 1,400 to 1,800.
The affordables are to 2,000. 2,000's the market rate, the affordables are 1,400.
Yep.
Okay.
So this,
And how many affordables?
so there would have been, with 16, there would have been 4.
4.
With
Okay.
20, there will be 5.
Five, yeah.
So, what, I'm holding these together so you can see, the big difference in why we coupled them up in two families is every two, we don't have a space between. So you can see there's about a 15-foot space between each of these dwellings
Yeah.
here. So we brought those all together to consolidate the footprint. And these are generally these are the exact same footprints here, we've just coupled them together.
So you have 4 1,400 square foot houses that you probably have to sell for about, what, $239?
That we don't dictate that, that's the
But,
market, yeah.
let's say that's the
Right,
number.
yeah,
Won't-
probably.
Then you
Won't
have,
be any higher than that.
right, because you have the 80% of the median, correct?
Right.
So then you have to take 16 divided by, or minus 4, you have 12 homes left at 2,000 square feet. And those homes, based on what I know, would probably go for 6 to 650. So,
We hope so.
assuming the market held strong.
Right.
So,
You're a little high. but
a
that's-
little high? All right, so 589 to
They are
650.
two-bedroom.
They're two bedrooms, so
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
you're like 450,
Okay. Well, that's,
500 tops.
okay, so I get it. Well, I didn't realize it was.
Sorry, I don't mean to screw up your math. I
No,
just-
no, it's fine. I was just saying, there seems to be a lot of money on the table if there were 3 bedrooms, but if they're 2s, it's a little bit tougher sell.
Yeah, age restricted.
Yeah. Okay, answer my question.
And so just for the board and for folks in the audience, we're here to, as a matter of essentially procedure, to determine whether or not there's a substantial change from there being 16 to 20 units. That's why we're here. It's not a hearing on the merits. But in light of that, there are 2 pieces of correspondence related to this matter that I'd like to read into the record. You want to take one of them?
Sure,
I'll do the big one.
Sure.
This is to the Georgetown Zoning Board of Appeals, March 4th, 2019, from George Kaminsky, regarding request for modification of 47 to 53 West Street. Dear Chairman and members of the Zoning Board of Appeals, I'm writing this letter to share my thoughts on the request for modification of the 2002 ZBA comprehensive permit for 47 West Street, formerly Tids Used Auto Sales. As a former public involvement plan PIP group member, which oversaw the cleanup of the site, I may have some information on the current ZBA, some information the current ZBA members are not aware of that I would like to share. I'm also a board director of the Park River Clean Water Association and represent the PRCWA for our membership on a number of environmental issues in Georgetown. Most recently, having sent in a comment letter to the Mass Environmental Policy Act agency, MEPA, regarding the planned G-Mellow disposal expansion. I am also currently reviewing the Georgetown Water Department's application for Mass DEP to increase water withdrawals at the West Street well field. It goes without saying this project proposal has gone on for quite a long time. I think much of the blame for this is a lack of due diligence by the applicant. The history of noncompliance and enforcement actions are well documented by Mass DEP and the Georgetown Conservation Commission. My level of involvement has sometimes waned due to years of non-action by Mr. Morello. My understanding is that there's been very little interaction between the applicant and the ZBA over the course of these 17 years, except for a previous modification in 2010 that asked the board to lift the over 55 requirement. The request was denied. I'm not sure where the current surety or letter of credit stands with the town, but there are several conditions of the 14-page ZBA decision that I believe have not been met. 1, condition 14, results of electromagnetic testing to be provided to Georgetown peer review, which shall show no evidence of buried automobile material larger than 8 cubic feet to a depth of 6 feet. There's no evidence of this testing analysis. 2, condition 20, the applicant and or condominium trust shall provide 8 monitoring wells. The condo trustee shall have the monitoring wells checked monthly or at a reasonable intervals. Reports to be submitted to Conservation Commission. In its denial letter of July 2017, the Conservation Commission noted monitoring wells were not being shown on submitted plans. 3, ZBA denials of applicant's request for exemption from the Local Wetlands Protection Act. Bylaw, Chapter 161, applicant must comply and file with the Conservation Commission under local wetland bylaw. Applicant did not file with the commission under the local WPA bylaw in 2017. Applicant claimed exemption 15 years after the decision without notifying ZBA. 4, ZBA determination as stated in the decision, the approval of the the approval of the comprehensive permit of Marina Way on November 18th, 2001 added 186 rental units to the town's subsidized housing inventory under provisions in MGL Chapter 40B. The town has met local housing needs. 10%. The approval of Narina Way before the approval of Tids Auto put Georgetown over the required SHI inventory, therefore not subject to the state's requirements under the Chapter 40B. The applicant argued in front of the Conservation Commission that they are no longer subject to ZBA's signed decision without informing the ZBA. In 2012, the Mass DEP completed its risk assessment of the former junkyard and signed off on the cleanup of the site, posing, quote, no significant risk to human health, end quote. The report did state that there are still levels of dioxins associated with soils and groundwater as background. The report stated the background elevations may be caused by external sources such as emissions from the incinerator plant located in Haverhill. Elevated levels of lead and arsenic were found at the site, leaving the risk assessor to establish protocols for vegetable gardens. Ideally, vegetables would be grown on raised beds using imported soils. The final risk assessment noted metal scraps and broken glass scattered throughout the site. The site still poses some health risk for future inhabitants of the proposed development. The ZBA should find that this constitutes a major modification and a public hearing is needed to address the issues mentioned above. An increase in the number of units in a tightly constrained area and bound by wetlands is sure to cause some infrastructure issues. How many bedrooms are being proposed of these duplex units? More details and plans need to be shown. My sense is the worst case scenario has happened. Dense development, 20 units of housing on 4 acres of land that is currently zoned for a 1 structure per 2 acres. In an area near our public water source will become a facility where never-ending pollutants of herbicides, pesticides, household cleaners, and pharmaceutical products will enter our groundwater in perpetuity. Sincerely, George Kaminsky, 45 Old Jacobs Road in Georgetown, Mass.
Good. Mr. Chairman, could I make one point of clarification on,
Yes.
on here that you just read?
Yep.
The request to lift the 55 and over requirement back in 2010 was not technically denied by the board.
Okay.
It was found by the board that that did constitute a substantial change, and throughout, we met several times, and the applicant withdrew without prejudice before the board made a decision. So just
Okay.
just for clarification. Next correspondence to the Georgetown Zoning Board of Appeals, Library Street, Georgetown, Mass., dated March 5th, 2019, regarding a request for modification of 47 to 53 West Street. Dear Chairman and members of the Zoning Board of Appeals, I'm writing this letter to share my thoughts on the request for modification of the 2002 ZBA comprehensive permit for 47 to 53 West Street, formerly Tidd's Used Auto Sales. I am a direct abutter to the property and have concerns about changes, the agreed upon terms and conditions. This project proposal has lay mostly dormant for a very long time due to lack of due diligence by the applicant to comply with the enforcement actions by Mass DEP and the Georgetown Conservation Commission. My understanding is that the planned project has morphed from housing 16 families in 16 units to housing 20 in 10 units. This would entail extensive changes to sewage treatment, stormwater runoff, and the footprint, and would have to be a major modification if not a new project. I ask you to open a hearing to review the current status of the project to determine all the tasks that need to be done and develop a new plan to proceed. Sincerely and with thanks, Bob Watts, Melissa White, 9 West Street, Georgetown, Mass.
This is what I'll do now too, and normally this would only occur in a full hearing, which this is not. Again, this is just a procedural issue for the board to determine whether or not there's a substantial change. But in the interest of, if you came here and you showed up, I want to make sure that you're recognized. So I don't know if anyone in attendance is here for the hearing who wants to stand up and say something for the board to consider. No? Yes, sir? You want to just come up and state your name and...
Yeah, I'm George Comiskey. I
Oh.
wrote one of the letters.
Okay.
And I just was talking to Melissa, sit beside me before the hearing, and was recounting how long this has gone on. And I was at a site visit, and her daughter stuck her head out the window and said, "They're flying planes into the World Trade Center." And just when you remember, everyone knows where they were during 9/11, and that's what happened. That even is after the beginning, so there's activity going on in 2000. So so it's kind of a wonder why the boards have let this go on, for such a long time. It's, I think what boards have gone over, and just extending courtesies to the applicant, and it's as cited in my letter. It's hasn't been the fault of the town. But one thing I'd like to point out in the plan, that they talk about a delineation of the wetlands. My understanding, the wetlands haven't been delineated. I do have a letter of denials, where it states that the wetlands hasn't yet been delineated, just because there's been wetland flagging going on. It's only delineated when the Conservation Commission says so. And I'd also like to know what the process is if the commission enters a denial and the DEP has not issued a superseding order. I mean, isn't that the end of the project? How does that affect 40B? Because the project was denied under the State Act, and I'd like to have that addressed. I'd like to know if the zoning board is going to enforce its condition that they file under the Wetlands Protection Act. I mean, they were given 20 days to appeal back in 2002. Now, 15 years later, they say to the commission, we're not going to follow that condition. So I think some of these conditions, before you proceed, should be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to ask council to maybe address some of those questions. And also, just in the interest of staying on point
Sure.
to the task, we're here tonight, what we're here to do is procedurally.
Right, so right now you're considering whether a modification is substantial or insubstantial. If you do decide that this is a substantial modification, which the regulations are going to lead you down the road to that it's a substantial modification, then that sets a chain of events. You have 30 days to open up a public hearing. What is important to remember is that the only thing that can be discussed is the modification. So we can't go back and revisit the entire project. We can't go back and revisit other conditions.
Yeah.
One of the things that I will note is that I think that the request for a modification is lacking, because I think that by what has been requested isn't enough. So,
Can you elaborate on that?
sure, so for example, the number of bedrooms, there's a condition in there that there can only be 32 bedrooms, so that cannot change, that was not a request for a modification. So they're looking at 20 units, some of them are gonna have to be one-bedroom units. The septic system is gonna stay the same size, landscaping, things like that are all gonna have to stay the same. So, when you wanna do a modification, they're not just taking out a few units, they're redesigning the infrastructure in some sort of way. So, but what is before us is the reduction in the units, so, that's really all that would be, before the ZBA. With regard to conservation, you know, I think that they would need an ANRAD to be able to prove that the modification is necessary. An ANRAD meaning the wetland line would have to be delineated and approved by the commission, or DEP, if they appeal the commission's ANRAD delineation. But I don't know how they're going to show that they have to make this change without having a wetland line established. I also can't believe that they submitted a plan without the new wetland, which shows why they needed the change. That was a little confusing.
I spent about an hour trying to figure
yeah,
out what the
me too.
difference
That
was, to be honest with you.
very confusing to me. But with regard to other issues of enforcement of the existing 2002 permit, the gentleman is correct that this permit is final. It was not appealed, so it is a final permit. There has been a determination that the permit, that the work, substantial work has begun, and so therefore, right now, if there are any conditions in the permit that they are not doing, those would be on an enforcement basis. And that wouldn't be for this board right now. That starts with the building inspector.
Counsel, do you have any response, anything you want to say?
No, I agree that enforcement would rest with the building inspector. I think ultimately the board this evening has to determine whether or not this is substantial or insubstantial, and then we'll take our lead accordingly.
Yeah, I think going from, this is just where I'm at, I guess we can be in board discussion, but I think it's prima facie if it's going from 60 to 20, that it's a substantial change. That would be my position. I don't know if other voting members tonight feel that way.
Mr. Chairman, I have one question.
Yeah.
What is the situation with the bedrooms? I mean, have you considered
Do you know what the bedroom count is in
are
the
you
20
planning,
duplex
or are you
units?
suggesting you want to increase the number of bedrooms? And
They're all 2-bedroom, so 16 be 32.
so you do plan to increase the number of bedrooms, although that's not allowed
not a
under the
request.
existing.
Yeah, that's not.
Hasn't been
that-
requested, and it's
yeah.
not, it's not allowed under the existing permit, comprehensive permit, so that would be
Right.
another change, I
Yeah,
guess.
and I-
That would require new septic design and so forth as well.
I take Amy's point as well, that to the extent that the landscaping and other amenities are moving around as a result of the reconfiguration, that ought to be covered as well.
Mhm.
Mr.
I
Chairman.
think I would agree with Mr. Moore. I think you're gonna need a septic, possibly a septic redesign
Yeah.
to add 8 bedrooms,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Well, rather than belabor this by giving you an extension of time and then resubmitting our request for project change, it sounds like you're, even if we were just increasing the unit count from 16 to 20, you're gonna send us over for a public hearing. So what I would like to do is talk with my partner and have him amend his letter, which I will do verbally tonight, or I'll write it down as well if that's something that you'd like to see. But I'd like to add those things so that it's cleaned up and you don't have to struggle with those issues. So that would be 16 to 20 units. It would be 32 bedrooms to 40 bedrooms. It would be changes in landscaping and changes in septic design.
Mr.
And
Chairman, if I may.
Please.
Could you, I understand the concept of what you're changing,
Right.
but perhaps Paul could go through, there's conditions that
Yeah.
need to be changed.
Yes.
If he could go through and submit something in writing,
as to, you know, what conditions are actually changing. There is a condition that limits it to 32 bedrooms.
I understand.
So that would probably be more helpful.
Yep. Been down this road before with a Carlisle modification, and at first we were simply cutting it back, and that's what we asked for, but as the hearings unfolded, we realized that there were
And then could
many
you,
things.
with the letter, could you acknowledge that it's a substantial change, and so we don't have to go through this again with your new changes?
That makes perfect
And
sense.
then we can possibly try and get everything on track,
That
on the
makes
same track?
perfect sense. That, I will tell Paul to do that tomorrow. And I know that Scott will give Paul excellent guidance in other aspects of this that change, and that also need to be pointed out for your attention.
Okay.
Okay.
So we're taking no vote, no motion?
So do we, you know,
They withdraw then, or?
Yeah.
Well, we'll just deem it a substantial
Okay.
change.
Okay, okay.
My partner will work with your counsel to have that letter submitted ASAP, and I hope jointly you can work to find a date within a reasonable period of time that's convenient for Paul.
So I would suggest that there be no action
Yeah.
taken tonight. A letter will come in that will state that the following changes are requested, and they are agreeing that they are substantial, and they are waiving their 20 days, the 20 days for you to decide whether they're substantial or insubstantial.
Do we need a motion for that?
No,
Okay.
it's
All
a
right.
We
business
don't need to
meeting, we
take
don't.
any
Okay.
action.
We don't need a motion for any of that. However, I will warn the board that, if for some reason that all changes and a letter comes in and they do not waive the 20 days, then we have to meet in 20 days to determine if it's substantial or insubstantial. However, we do have Attorney Bobrowski on tape saying that.
Yes, and I'm bigger than Haverty, so.
Fair
So
enough.
I think we'll be okay.
Okay.
Now,
Fair enough.
the next hearing, it would be a public hearing, and that, what is the structure of that? Is it?
It's
is
a
it
standard
here?
public hearing, so it's just like the last 40B we did, the Olson 40B.
So back in front of the ZBA?
Yeah, and,
Okay, I understand.
They will
Okay.
submit it, we have, 30 days unless we get an extension to open it. We generally have 180 days, even though it's a modification, and then we close it, we have 40 days to issue our decision again. The only thing is that, he has requested that the, January 12th letter, is being withdrawn. And so, the board has to accept that, the board just has to accept that withdrawal. So I would just vote to approve, to accept the withdrawal of the, I'm pretty sure it's
It's the 16th.
January 16th letter, request for modification. So I would just, take a vote to accept that, that has been withdrawn without prejudice.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board vote to withdraw the letter dated January 16th from the applicant without prejudice.
Have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
May I ask a procedural question?
Sure.
So, if this proceeds as it sounds like it will, and it becomes a public hearing, did I hear our counsel say that it's not to be based on prior, it starts from this point forward, the new hearing?
The
Is
new
that
hearings, yep, just like when we did our
Based
last
on
40B.
clean,
However,
whatever it is today?
right,
Sorry, what are
however,
time
all we would,
constraints? Because we may not be able to get them in for April. Like, do we have a time period in which?
We have
we-
180 days now, yeah, right?
so we would have to, we would have to get them, we would have to have a public hearing within 30 days. However, I will work with Attorney Haverty on that. Because he has to go through the decision and go through all the changes probably with the engineer, so we might not get a letter tomorrow.
You're gonna go condition by condition, I would
Yeah.
assume, just
Yeah.
make sure you got everything
I think
covered.
in addition to that, you need to look at the plan and just see what's
Yeah.
gonna move, because it needs to be changed.
Right. So once the modification is before, the substantial modification is before this board, all we can discuss is the modification. So we can't go back and say, with regard to the 21E, the cleanup, things like that, really go back and revisit that, because that will most likely have nothing to do with the substantial.
So prior conditions, we would condition what's currently before us.
Yes.
And what we see is
And
needing
so-
condition today.
Right, so
Okay.
what we do is we issue a new, we issue a decision based on the modification.
Yep.
So there's gonna be an amended decision decision, and we can discuss whether we wanna do a restated and amended
Okay.
decision, or just an amended decision. I've done it both ways.
Okay. So I think that if this does go to the hearing, we'll just have to keep everyone on point.
It's
about
very
today
difficult.
and not about whatever, how many years have passed.
It's very difficult to do
Sure.
that, you're right.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you for clarifying.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Right, thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Close business now.
You don't have to.
Yeah.
Just is it for 7:30 in the next
Yeah.
hearing, and then we can finish business later.
Okay,
Do that if you want to take the next hearing.
okay,
If
perfect.
you want, it's 7:30, actually, so it's in the,
Yeah.
yeah. And then we'll just, I'll try to remind you
Yeah,
that we gotta go
please.
back and
Yeah,
finish
yeah.
business when we're done.
Do you folks at Fort Carlton wanna come up?
Have an extra?
Yeah, I was gonna fly you out, but you didn't
Oh, wait, here it is.
If it ever snows a lot again, you want me to, you have a nice snow blower. So you, it's bad, I just mess it up.
No, I'm just kidding, you know.
Started my day,
Appreciate your help,
I
thank
started
you.
my day in Billings.
Oh, gosh.
We met because I was out for a little while.
Right.
Yeah.
It's hard to see.
Yep.
But yeah, I was,
Yeah, yeah,
had
yeah.
an injury, and so it took me out from the first couple of hearings.
Oh, yeah.
Rich?
And they just went forever, so I never.
I wouldn't.
All set?
I'm all set. Gonna, open the hearing for, for Carlton Drive. I already read the rules of procedure. I'll read the legal notice here. Town of Georgetown Zoning Board of Appeals, 4 Carlton Drive. A public hearing will be held on March 5th, 2019 at 7:30, or at 7:40 now, at the Georgetown Hall, 3rd floor meeting room, for an application filed by owners John Desmond and Thomason J. Berry, trustees of the Salisbury Realty Trust, Cox Engineering, 21 Pasella Park Drive, Randolph, Mass. 02368, doing business as Cambridgeport Air Systems, located at 4 Carlton Drive, Georgetown, Mass. 01833, in the IB district and identified on Assessor's Map 15, Lot 44. The applicant requires a special permit under Mass General Laws, Chapter 40A, Section 9 of the Georgetown Zoning Bylaws, Chapter 165, Sections 7, 9, 11, and 74-79, for a use not specifically listed in the Schedule of Uses in conformance with 165-9, to install a 81-foot by 121-foot accessory storage building, being a fabric Quonset hut with a metal frame. This is also found on the website for Mass Newspaper Publishers, ZBA file number 19-05, and it was ad number 13764-659 in the Georgetown Record, published on 2/1 and 2/8 of 2019. I'm Sean Dean, I'm Chair of the Zoning Board. Voting members tonight will be David Twist, Paul Schilling, Jeff Moore, and Gina Tebow. Patty Patari, our faithful administrative assistant, hi Patty, is unfortunately out tonight, not feeling well. Patty, we hope you feel better and get well soon. What's going on?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Rich Williams with Williams and Spragus. I'm the civil engineer for the project. With me tonight is Scott Menino and Brian D'Arcangelo.
Good evening.
I did good, right?
Yeah.
Both from Cambridgeport Air Systems. And if it's okay, I'll just take you through the project.
Please.
So, this project, as was just read, is for an accessory structure. The project is located at 4 Carlton Drive, which I'm sure all of you know where Carlton Drive is. This is the first industrial building on Carlton Drive. I drive in, it's a big brick building. And it currently looks like this. This is the building. There's parking on the side and access in the front here. And this is operation, loading, and maneuvering for their operations. The proposal is to construct this accessory building, which is located off the back of the existing pavement. So it's between the pavement and the existing stormwater management area. There's a stormwater pond that kind of wraps around where that building is proposed. The building would be accessed from the back parking lot. There would be a small section of pavement to allow access to the building. And this building would store materials, and I'll let these guys explain a little bit why the building's needed and what they do in a minute. The building is also located in, well, take you through how we got here. We applied for site plan approval, and through that process we're instructed that because the accessory outdoor storage is not listed as a use, that it required relief. I was not aware of that. It's actually not listed as a use in an approved use in any zone.
Right.
So initially going into it, I assumed that because it wasn't listed in any zone, that it was allowed in every zone. But here we are. So the building inspector required or suggested that we ask for the relief that's on the application. We also need site plan approval from the planning board, which if we get through this process, that will be the next thing that we tackle. It also lies within the water resource district. We meet the requirements for that. We don't need to file an additional permit. However, it is in that district. With that, I'm gonna turn it over to these guys just to give you a little background on what they do and what the building will be used for.
The building will be used strictly for storage. We are a HVAC accessories manufacturer, primarily rooftop units. We make platforms, support platforms for them. Excuse me, and we make air dampers. So that storage facility would be basically for some finished product, and that'd be some sheet metal support platforms, some dampers, and limited raw materials. Primarily would be lumber, and that's it. Strictly storage. And the reason we're asking for that accessory building is because we just need it for storage. The existing building is completely, all the space is taken up with manufacturing. Honestly, we're tripping over stuff, so we're looking for a place to store product.
If you drive through there now, you can see that there's a bunch of product that they've got outside, and they wanna get that covered up.
Right. Right now, it's in the back parking lot, which, as you kind of hinted at, that's where, so we have flatbed trucks that pull on the back for pickups, drop-offs. It's cumbersome back there.
Part of our issue with that too is that all of our products get insulated, so there's an insulation product that's put on the adapters and curbs, and that we need to try to keep that out of the elements. So right now, we're just, trying to tarp and, preventive maintenance that we have to, but the storage shed would be a huge help for that.
Is it open to the elements, or is there a door that shuts on the front of it?
There's a door that shuts on the front.
Is it locked too? Can you lock it up?
Yes.
Yeah, I think yep.
Is it on the ground or is there a bottom?
It would be, well, it's kind of, the picture you have there, ma'am, it's gonna be very much like that, except longer.
No foundation system. It's just gonna
foundation.
sit
okay.
on,
Right.
and be supported by those
Those
sea-land
boxes
Shipping containers is
are
what
shipping
those are.
containers. Those would be placed on the ground, and the fabric system is built on top of those.
Is this even considered a permanent structure?
I think it depends on your definition, I guess, of permanent
You're
structure.
not even putting a foundation, it's
No,
almost like a
there's
tent.
no foundation system there.
I think when I asked the question, it was, if it's not gonna be moved, if it's not likely to be moved, then it's assumed to be a permanent structure.
Okay,
That was kinda the answer I got when I asked that question.
But from a structural standpoint, it's not gonna have any kind of footing system or, permanent underground.
You don't even put a slab on it? Put a slab underneath it?
No, we'll end up doing some type of, pavement or
Gravel.
something
Oh, yeah,
in the
right.
tent area,
Yeah, yeah.
so that the forklift can travel in and out and,
Yeah.
move pallets around and whatnot.
And you'll use the storage containers as well, obviously.
Yes, yeah.
So how big is it gonna be again? Sorry, because there's this picture of this guy, and then there's this one.
Well,
This one's
yeah,
like
we
a
were trying to
circus
find some
tent.
good, if the one you had in your left hand, sir, if it's that, but, that shows one 8 by 20 foot container
Yeah.
long, it's gonna be 3 of those long, same width, but 3
81.
containers long. There was no good picture of exactly
Gotcha.
what we were doing, so.
Yeah, so that's 40 deep.
81 by
3,
120.
20, 40, 60.
No, that one there that is.
Oh, is it 40?
You can visualize that. So 4 of the,
3 of those.
three of those, sorry.
On the long side, yep.
Three of these.
Yes, yep. 3 20-footers, so 60 feet long, yes. No, I'm sorry,
120.
120.
120.
Those are 40,
Yes.
so
Those are 40
it will-
footers.
this building will be 120.
Yeah.
How tall are these?
The containers or the,
The,
or the whole
the tent,
building?
it looks, I mean, he's on a forklift, so I'm guessing it's pretty tall.
Yeah, I don't have
I
any
think the
drawings
total
with
height
me.
was 30 feet.
30.
Okay.
How tall is the building in the front?
I'm sorry?
How tall is the building in the front?
It's probably about the same. It's probably
2.5
30.
floors, but yeah.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be able to see this from the front of the building.
That's where I was going.
I just wonder, are you guys gonna change the stormwater runoff with that amount of impervious?
So we've got,
I
and
think I
we'll,
saw some
we'll be going
drainage
through
there.
this with the planning board, but, this paved area is proposed to be pervious pavement. So that will, have no runoff. And then we've got, crushed stone, aprons on both sides to accept the runoff from the,
Yep.
from the roof, so that the arch will go down to the roof, and those will be tipped so that they run off the side of the containers onto the crushed
That'll be
stone.
sufficient to absorb any water. It won't be going into your already,
It
design.
won't, we've done a drainage study that shows that we've got a little less runoff than we started with if we do this design.
right?
And because the roof is considered clean, it doesn't have to be treated, it can go, all roof runoff is considered clean. So it doesn't have
Sure.
to be treated, it can just be infiltrated.
Why did you choose that size, the 81 by 120?
Just to maximize the amount of space. We're trying to, believe it or not, we moved into that building, we didn't think we were gonna need any additional space, but once we brought all the manufacturing, all the machinery in there, we were, mistaken. So the reason we tried to maximize, get as much storage as we could, and
And it-
still have
it-
it be approved.
Yeah, I mean, it fits between the buffer zone to the wetland and the stormwater pond. So if we went further this way, we'd be in the pond. If we went further that way, we'd be in the Conservation Commission's jurisdiction. And we didn't want to alter the pond, and we didn't want to be going to conservation.
Can I ask-
Yeah, I was gonna ask that too. Of course.
What's the nature of work that would happen within the structure? So I understand it's storage, but obviously you need to put I'm thinking.
Just
of pillars.
loading and unloading, man, with a fork truck, basically drive
All
something in.
day long?
Hmm?
All day long? There's no sound barrier, I presume, because it's a fabric, right?
Well,
It
they're
would
they're
be,
storing out there now.
during the day, it wouldn't
Yeah.
be 8 hours a day
Sure.
consistently, but there would be some traffic out back there, but.
And our fork truck is propane, so it's pretty
Right.
quiet.
And you're storing materials out there now, right?
I'm sorry?
Right
Storing
now, yes,
materials.
it's out in the parking lot, yes, correct.
Are any folks in the audience here for this hearing? Yes.
Can I speak?
Sir, do you want to come up and just state your name and absolutely you may speak?
Yeah, so, my name's Joe Pironi, I own 2 Carlton Drive, pretty much the only house that's on that street. So I've been there for 10 years and, I actually do the similar work that these guys are building there. since they've come in, I haven't met you guys, but I don't know, does town let free shifts all night long? I mean, all night long, banging, dumpsters banging, trucks coming, fork trucks, backup lights, all day and all night long. Weekends, it doesn't stop. They're bringing all this equipment in to do all this welding and fabrication. Has the town looked into like the environmental effects? Are they up with, you know, more the OSHA codes and everything like that? Because I'm smelling chemicals, there's more smoke coming out of the building than usual. I've never had any problems there. I got 18 wheelers coming down there, stopping in the middle of the night, backup alarms. I mean, it's crazy. And now you're gonna put another, and also they installed all kinds of lights in the back. And I'm up on the hill here. Now all these lights shine into my house. I just didn't think that, like, I moved here from the city to think, you know, you could have 3 shifts.
We don't run 3 shifts.
They're there all night.
Yeah, it's 2 shifts, but yeah, they're at night, but yeah, it's
I mean,
2
it gets a
shifts.
little loud. I mean, I'm a union boilermaker. My brother's a union tin knocker, so I'm all about working, but it's, I mean, I feel my house shakes sometimes when you guys are dropping equipment back there. Like, my whole house shakes because I'm up on the hill.
Chairman, could I ask?
Sometimes, bang, I mean, it's...
Yeah, please, yeah.
Could you point out where your lot is? Are you just right, the lot in the lower left there?
It's right there.
That house lot, right? Yeah, okay.
So I'm up on a hill here, like on a ledge. So I shit you not, every time they drop one of these heavy equipment or whatever they're doing, my house shakes.
How do you get into your driveway? Do you have to come in through Carlton?
Yeah.
So after the Georgetown sign, there's a driveway there, is that you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not after. Can I say something? I'm his wife. Michelle
Before.
Brody. You take a right onto Carlton and then
Right.
up the driveway.
Where the
not
sign is, you.
take a right into there.
Yeah.
And we have 3 children, and this is going on to like 11 o'clock at night constantly. Bang, bang, bang.
It wasn't like this,
When Barry owned it.
and they're bringing a lot of equipment in there. I just don't know if we're keeping
How
an
much
eye
longer
on.
we can, if there's more noise going on and traffic back and forth, that's our backyard almost, you know, our kids hang out back there.
And the environmental effect, you got probably 5 times the amount of welding going on now than was previous, and
And more trucks coming down the street. I mean, I go down there to the bus stop and they're whizzing in every day.
Thank you, and recognize the frustration you have. As the zoning board, we're here for a particular use and to weigh whether or not to grant a special permit for this structure. I don't know.
Can I make a comment, Mr.
Yeah,
Chairman?
please.
You know, you're considered light industry, the current use. And, you know, the type of nuisances that they're talking about really are to be contained to your property. That's, you can, we've seen this before. Whether or not the storage facility is related to what they're complaining about is sort of another matter. What they're talking about is operational issues that may need to be worked out through the building inspector. You know, if you're seeing things that are happening, and I'll just read the definition: that fabrication, assembly, processing, finish work, or packaging in such a manner that noise, dust, odor, vibration, and similar objectionable features shall be confined to the premises to the most reasonable extent possible. And we've seen this before, where you have a residential zone, an industrial zone. Wherever those 2 zones meet, you have the potential for an issue. So, Mr. Chairman, if it's okay, I would recommend that you butter. First of all, you know, keep an eye on this and try to contain these noises, vibrations, your operating plan. You know, to take into consideration the you know, your neighbors. And to the neighbors, I would suggest that if this continues, you should seek guidance from the building inspector. He'll go out and he will observe what's going on over there.
does this, does this storage unit you guys are putting in, does this mean that your workload's gonna like,
No.
because I know we're booming right now.
No, it's not gonna
Work.
add, it's really just to kind of, you know, store what we have right now. You know, as far as, you know, noise and everything else, when we first moved in, I dropped off a business card and said, if you guys have any issues or questions, if things are, you know, different, please get in touch with me. So I wish you had come over, you know,
Well,
sooner.
I've just been kinda
No,
dealing
no, no,
with it.
no, I understand that, but, you know, the squeaky wheel gets the oil, so,
Yeah.
you know, please come over and talk to us. So if there's some way for us to bend stuff and have it already prefabricated before our second shift comes in, so that there's minimal amount of, you know, punch noise and things like that, then absolutely, we will do that for you. You know, I understand that it's, you know, you've
Right.
got, you know, small
It's
kids
not
and.
only the
No, no, no.
nuisance of the noise,
Yeah.
it's the vibration of our house.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
I think,
no.
potentially
Right.
like
I mean-
punch heavy gauge stuff in the daytime and punch light gauge stuff at nighttime.
But it's
so
the vibration of our house that's, you know,
Right,
I mean, how much can the house take? It's up on a ledge.
right.
That's what we're concerned with.
I mean, we can, you know, I'm not
Yeah, you
sure
know,
it's-
we're gonna let the part, just
Yeah.
in the interest of keep moving forward, we'll let the
Sure.
parties, you know, it's good that you're having a dialogue. We
Okay.
want that to continue
Yeah.
and want to recognize that you should work towards some resolution, but we're here to consider this structure. Is there anybody else in the audience who would like to stand up and be recognized and heard? Yes, ma'am.
I'm Amy Smith. I live at 1 Katy Lane, which is off 133, but our property abuts the zoning. I was just curious, I had a question actually. Will there be more lighting added to this structure?
No.
Because right now we have a light trying to right in our bedroom.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
We can
No,
address
they
those
really
lights
won't
as
be
well. I mean,
accessing
if
that
they,
at
you know,
night, ma'am. It's, I mean, second shift is primarily gonna be doing what they do now. They won't really be driving in and out of there at night, so there won't be
You'll
any.
be
We're not
adding
gonna have any
lights to
lighting
the
or-
structure though?
No.
Okay.
This requires site plan review, right? Can I make a
Please,
comment,
yeah,
Mr. Chairman? Should this,
Daytime
for the
access,
benefit
so-
of the folks in the audience as well, that should this be approved, this will require site plan approval by the planning board. Absolutely, the lighting and some of the operational issues, you know, would be addressed. Certainly the lighting and any landscaping, you know, issues
And that would be a
kind of
public
thing.
hearing that they could attend?
That would be a site plan approval, public hearing through the
We don't
planning
plan
board.
on bringing any power to that building that we're proposing right there, so. And as far as the lighting and that's on the building right now, then, you know, we can surely address that with the neighbors if there's an issue.
Pam, did you have anything?
Well, I mean, I don't, I'm on Tenny Street.
What's your name?
35 Tenny Street, Janet Talbot. And so I feel like I'm far enough away, but I guess the issue of the lighting was, you know, came to mind because I can actually see some of the existing lighting, you know, through the woods, especially in the winter, so, you know, I don't have the same issues that they have, but being close to it, I wanted to kind of get a sense of what was gonna happen.
If nothing else, our new building
Yeah.
might block your light that's
Oh,
coming
okay.
through right now, so
Yeah.
on that backside, not for you folks, but
Right.
for you folks that live on the back portion of that property. The new building going up will surely block some of the lighting from our existing building right now.
Yeah.
Rich, are you familiar with the lighting, or are you guys familiar with the lighting that's out there now? If something new is installed, you guys have been in, you bought the building not all that long ago, right?
Yeah, we moved in October, so.
Right, okay, so you installed some
We did
outdoor
put
lighting?
an extra, I think we might have put 1 or 2 additional lights in the back just for, primarily for, when they're loading trucks, especially in the wintertime when it gets dark early in the afternoon. So if the trucks, you know, we try to get the, freight carriers to be in by, you know, 3:30 in the afternoon, but of course they don't always show up by 3:30 in the afternoon. So if they're rolling in at 6 and they're trying to load a truck and it's pitch black out, it's a safety concern for the guys loading the truck, and so we brought in some additional lighting just to remediate that.
I think if you guys just put the lighting on this side of the parking lot, facing towards the dumpster place,
Right.
instead of facing towards the street.
I'm sure there's some
can
stuff we
that.
can
I'm
do
sure
to
there's some type of
alleviate that,
reflected
yes.
light that
Yep.
we can do there that's not gonna shine up into your,
Yep.
you know, into your yard.
Motion sensors maybe, so they're
Yeah,
not
or
lit
even
if there's
something we
nobody
can put
out
on a
there.
switch that we can shut off at a
Right.
certain time, you know, of the day and night, so you're not having to deal with it at nighttime.
Any questions from the board?
Sure. So, I'm just curious about the containers, so there's gonna be, what, 2 40-foot containers on, I forget how long this thing is.
There's 6 total, so 3
6.
on a side.
3 on each side.
3 40-footers, so you'll be accessing those as well and using those for storage, or are those just
Yes.
weights? Okay. So the one in the middle will not be used, or is there space
We'll
between?
probably
so
have
we can actually,
doors cut in on the
Okay.
side to be able to access those.
all right. And those are permanent? Obviously, they don't go anywhere. Are they gonna be painted? They just gonna be, red or green containers that you're gonna
I think they're
purchase?
the blue right now. and
Yeah,
they're
it
probably-
You
depends on
tend
the-
to spruce them up or paint them to match the building or anything like that, or? I don't know what
We
kind
hadn't
of
thought about it, but
I don't know, I just.
if it kind of, yeah, I guess
I
if we
mean,
need to,
containers can
yes.
get to be,
Yes,
I don't
yes.
know.
Yeah.
We wouldn't wanna make it an eyesore, we wanna increase the aesthetics of health things, yes.
I'm just curious what the plan is, that's all.
I'm amazed you won't need light there. I mean, if you have containers that you're putting storage in, you have this huge structure and.
You're working at
I'm
night?
surprised.
Well, we
We won't
won't,
be
we won't
loading
be
at night.
accessing
That's the
those
whole thing.
at
Daytime.
nighttime.
Okay.
All the storage and operation will be, during the day.
Sort of a canopy which will shield outdoor light in. You say so, I'm surprised, but I don't know enough about these things.
They're pretty bright with, I don't know if you've ever been in like some of the riding rings and things like that in, Georgetown, and they don't really need much
They
light.
don't reflect back
You know,
light, they
and
reflect
sometimes
light.
I think they can cut in like a,
Okay.
a clear, skylight that doesn't affect
Got
or,
it. Okay.
so.
It's just better to ask from the
Yep.
beginning than
Right.
to
But
say
we-
you don't need
You
it
don't need
and
power
then
or
you do.
containers. Nope, you
Yeah.
need lighting in there?
Nope, strictly storage.
Paul, you're quiet.
I mean, my personal take on this is, with, the concerns of the butters are certainly legitimate. I don't know that this structure is gonna exacerbate that situation at all. In fact, I guess there could be some potential for improvement there. This will have to go to site plan approval review. If it was granted by the board, I would suggest that the outdoor lighting be reviewed by the planning board at that time, both the existing lighting that's there now, and it doesn't sound like you're gonna be doing anything new.
Sure.
So if there's no power out there, that condition would, be automatically met. So it would meet any lighting requirements there, but I would think they'd wanna review that, and that might mitigate some of the concerns that these guys have. My thought was it's not the most attractive type of storage in the world. It's more kind of suited for maybe agricultural use or something you might see, Quonset hut on a larger farm somewhere. Then again, we have, Noonan's has large greenhouses, which aren't totally dissimilar from this type of structure. I drove by there a couple of times. I think that the location here is really important, because other than perhaps the abutters, I don't know if they'd be able to see this thing on a regular basis or not, but the general public, I don't think will really see this. It's behind the building. I drove by back and forth a few times. I can kind of envision what this is gonna look like. It's not gonna tower above your existing building. You're not really gonna see it. You've got a lot of stuff being stored out there now. It was hard for me driving by in and through to even see what you really had back there
Yeah.
from the street. So I think, to me, although I don't really love the design aesthetically, if I had to live next to it and look at it all day long, I might be, but, or if I had to drive by it all day long. But where it's located, I think makes a big difference in my mind as to, the fact that it seems to be reasonable. And it's something that they need. Are you gonna be storing finished goods out there only, or raw materials as well?
Both. The raw materials have really been limited to some raw lumber. And that would really be it.
We have to skid most of our, curbs and
Product on
adapters, so we
ships.
build our own pallets. So basically, it's just gonna be.
Oh, okay, I was wondering what the lumber was for.
Yeah.
Yeah, just-
For packaging, basically.
Yes, yep.
And so it's, that and finished goods, I guess, right? And you'd be loading, sorry, Dave,
Go ahead.
interrupting. You'd be loading trucks directly from that facility. If you have finished goods that are ready to ship, you'd be loading from your dock as well as going in and out of there to load your finished product to deliver to your
Correct.
customer.
And
And
that
that would
would-
only be during the day.
Right.
you're saying.
Yes.
Jeff, can we put a limit on when the trucks go to that structure to help alleviate?
Yeah, the board could make a condition on it. Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I don't mean to.
No, please.
No, the board can condition operating hours
Okay.
for this if we wanted to. I mean, the fact that they
I
don't
di-
have power, you could certainly,
I mean,
we could ask them what their plan is,
Yep.
and then we would, you know, build that into the permit, for
My
sure.
sense is that these gentlemen are agreeable to work with the neighbors to modify any issues that exist as best they can. I'd like to think that after we leave here, they'll probably reach out and fix some of that stuff before they get to the planning board, but, you know, as you noted, it's difficult when you have a residential lot next to a industrial commercial area, so you run the risk of noise and vibration and whatnot. I will say I don't see an issue with the structure as a whole, because I don't think I could see it from the road, and it's not gonna exceed the building height that, of the current building, so it may help with some of the lighting and some of the other problems, but, I think I'd wanna at least consider or discuss during board discussion, maybe how to alleviate any future issues about, you know, their intention is not to use it at night, so they shouldn't have an issue with a restriction of 6 or 6:30.
What's causing it? Is it deliveries that are causing a lot of the outdoor noise? It's
If
concerning.
we have trailers coming in, like Brian had said, that sometimes they're supposed to be there at 3 or 3:30, but generally we don't have any other trucks. I'm not sure if you've seen tractor-trailer trucks at, 10, 11, midnight?
We save them constantly.
Really? I mean, we generally don't get deliveries or, trucks, at our office until, from 6:30 in the morning, 7 in the morning until,
Honestly, that's
3
not
o'clock,
the
4
plan.
o'clock in the afternoon. So I'm
Sometimes
just,
they go down the end of the
We even
street.
have them down there idling, taking a nap on the side of the road.
so I'm
sometimes.
wondering if they're not even, could it just be someone trying to deliver deeper into Georgetown or Haverhill, and they just know that that's
I mean, it could also be, if we have a delivery, a pickup schedule for Wednesday morning, the guy driving the flatbed shows up Tuesday night and pulls down to the end of the
So
street,
that's something that
parks
we
there
can
and sits there and waits.
obviously address
Right.
too.
I mean, there's plenty of times that I walk down there with my dog to get the kids off the bus, and there's a guy sleeping in a tractor-trailer truck, and it's like, where
Down
am I right
closer to
now?
133, or?
Right in
No.
between our property, or maybe right past my property on the right side, where I pick up my kids off the bus.
Okay.
kind of
I mean, No, and that, I wish you had reached out to us sooner instead of having to do this at a planning board meeting,
Well, I personally can get a card from you.
You
I
will.
have to give you my husband.
No, I left one with your sister, I think that was down the bottom of the hill.
That's it.
The other-
I'm sure there's some things we can do.
So, I mean, I didn't wanna go out, you got your
Yeah.
no trespassing sign, so I didn't wanna trespass, but I
it's
did
kind of a
wanna.
sketchy road
We'll get
sometimes. with
together.
these
Okay,
people.
and I'll give you a business card
Right.
before we leave tonight, so you can contact me,
Okay.
and we'll try to make this right.
Yep.
If there's trucks parked and idled on Carlton Drive,
Call the police.
yeah, well, I was gonna say, I'm gonna reach out to, I'm gonna reach out to the highway department and find out if there's, signage or something.
Right, 'cause that's news to us,
You know what I mean?
right?
Yeah, because it could just be people coming off
Yeah,
the
I don't know.
highway
I don't
that
know.
aren't
It's
even
strange.
related because
Strange.
they should be staying in the parking areas. So
Yeah,
I would.
no, absolutely.
Wait, I
Yeah,
actually
don't-
got one more question. Are you guys gonna be hiring work release? I'm just
No,
curious.
really, no.
We already have work
pro-
release,
I
we
know
do,
you have to-
yeah,
oh.
yeah, we do.
Cause we had a problem in the past of them being left behind.
Mhm.
No, we don't, we've got a, if we do have someone come from like the farm, in Lawrence, there's someone that stays there in the van and makes sure that they're, so they're, they're not allowed to come and go as they please.
No, they
so,
can't roam.
Yeah.
No, that's how it was before, but someone got left behind and
I
forgot, and they
never
were
picked them
down
up.
the bottom
No,
of our hill.
we never do that.
They
We won't do
wait
that.
for-
No.
You have
And
to wait for rides.
That's why you'll have a business card. If
Nope.
you look,
We will never do
someone's a little
that.
sketchy out in front of your house, please call me and I can, if I'm not there, I can get in touch with someone that can address it, so.
Well, sometimes when a project like this comes before us, it's sort of an opportunity to kind of clarify a few things,
Yeah,
and to
absolutely.
maybe make some improvements. So
Yeah.
sometimes you have to be careful what you ask for, and sometimes you say, well, you know what, you do this, but maybe we can,
Right.
in decision, Mr. Chairman, maybe we can kind of clarify a few things like deliveries. So, and to Dave's point, so when do you, how late in the day do you, when you're expecting a delivery, they usually will always call and say, what time are you open till? What do you normally tell them as far as receiving deliveries? I know you got second shift, so.
3:30, 4
3:30,
o'clock.
4
If you
o'clock.
tell them you got
Usually,
second
yeah,
shift,
cut off.
they're coming
Honestly,
second
we
shift.
don't want, our second shift is there to build stuff, not load trucks, so we
Yeah.
we don't want them coming second shift. So we tell, stipulation is we want you there by 3:30, 4 o'clock.
Okay, so if we were to, stipulate that no deliveries past, like
4
six,
o'clock.
well, I don't know, 4 is, you're
Five.
never gonna
Because
be.
they're never
at
gonna,
four
if you said 6 o'clock, I mean.
6 o'clock.
Yeah,
right.
we could, yeah.
I mean,
I'm sure we could
we have-
work with that.
yeah.
I'm in the
Yes.
same kind of thing. We have trucks coming and going all day. And
Yep.
the minute you tell them you have a second shift, they're gonna take care of
course
everybody
they
else
are.
first and come to
That's
you
right.
late because
Yeah.
they got half their load is looking to get
Yeah,
there by
been
4:30.
there, done that, huh?
So-
Yeah, and it's amazing how, they'll be able to accommodate that 3:30 or 4 o'clock schedule when you tell them they absolutely can't get loaded
Right.
at 5 or 6 o'clock at night, so.
So would you guys be agreeable to us, say that no deliveries to the facility before, say 6 to 6 or something like that? I don't know
Absolutely.
if 6 is too early. You're never gonna get deliveries that early anyway, but.
Sure.
Mhm.
Is that kind of what you
That's
were thinking
exactly
about?
what I was thinking, Jeff. Yep.
I hesitate to put limitations on this only because when you put limitations on things, it basically allows other activity to continue that they've discussed, which is hammering or cutting or casting, whatever they do. Not casting, but I think that because of this meeting, they've brought up some issues. You are now aware. You're new to the neighborhood. So you didn't even really know this was happening. You do know now. You are aware now that you're on the radar in the town, which is great. And you still need to go in front of planning. Probably the building inspector, if you guys want a little bit of guidance, and if everyone wants guidance on operating hours, it should be delineated somewhere in the town as to when you're doing this stuff or how you, I don't know if you can be working 24 hours a day or 2 shifts or whatever, but the noise issue is something you're going to clearly address. I think that if we put limitations on delivery, that's only one limitation of a few things that they're going to address. The planning board will be addressing these again as well, as far as lighting's concerned, as
Right.
far as hours of use of that Quonset hut, for example.
Well, the usage would be restricted by the zoning board as far as hours and that kind of thing. They will look at site plan, they'll look at lighting, they'll look at access, all that kind of stuff. They may
Screen
look at
planting,
screening,
et
screen
cetera.
plantings, anything, that they feel is necessary.
So
You
hours
know,
of operation, there should be already a sort of, is there already, do you know, a light commercial, is there already?
Can we actually, they're asking for a storage shed.
Yeah.
Can we put a condition on their business
Is that
when they're
related?
asking
Is
for a
that- is
storage
that-
shed?
Well, we're talking about
I-
deliveries, so I'm talking about.
Deliveries to the storage shed or to the building
He
itself?
did say they're gonna pick up from the storage shed, so
No,
It's
my-
an
but I-
accessory use, so we're talking about, they have a use, and now they're asking for an accessory use. We're not asking for a storage building, this is considered an accessory use. So now, in order to add this accessory use, this board can now condition that.
So it's an accessory
it
use,
would-
not a storage shed?
There's no such thing as a storage facility in the bylaw, that's what Rich was trying to get at, since it's not listed anywhere.
The reason why you're here to begin
They're
with.
here.
Okay,
Yeah, so what
all right.
we would have to do is
I
grant the-
understand,
No, that's okay, but I mean, just to clarify though.
I'm
what
just
Just
trying to be
another
fair.
point, we wouldn't be loading flatbed trucks or anything like that directly from the accessory building. Anything that was gonna be shipped, any product that we were gonna ship would be brought during the day into the regular facility, where we have the elevated loading docks, and they would load
Oh,
the
I
trucks
see,
from there.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, so we wouldn't be pulling flatbed trucks or box trucks up to the accessory
Any
building.
fabrication that goes on outside?
No,
Nope,
None at all, right?
no,
That
Um,
was my next question.
no,
no.
all done
And the
inside.
doors are closed?
Most of the
Yes.
noise issues we've seen come from, doors being open with a lot of grinding and stuff going on, that can kind of carry. You guys aren't doing any of that. I mean, obviously there's some noise, I don't know exactly.
No, I haven't heard
what's
any
going on.
grinding or nothing like that. It's just a loud banging sometimes. I think it's just when the trucks are dropping the stuff. You know, the loads
Unloading and
off,
unloading and
or
unloading.
trucks dropping their pallets, I don't know. But,
Backup alarms?
yeah, those are a lot.
I'm also wondering if the Quonset hut is going to give them a little more room inside the building to spend less time out in the parking lot. Once that parking lot gets opened up, And then they'll have more storage inside the main building. They'll be able to move things around a little bit more efficiently. So I'm saying it's clearly gonna make things easier for you and obviously more attractive as well.
Absolutely.
For the neighbors and everything. And it'll help them get a little more organized. Again, you've only been there since October, so you're still trying to figure things out.
Right.
I mean, it takes a while.
No, and I mean, you know, part of the lighting and things like that, you know, we're all presented to the town and, you know, so we didn't go ahead and put lights on that we didn't have, you know, run by the, you know, building department and things like that prior to. Should we have gotten the, you know,
Well-
abutters involved? Probably, but we will address that, you know, now and try
Yeah,
to make it right,
exactly.
you know.
So I'm clear, all fabrication and manufacturing goes on inside the building. During the day, you're saying your deliveries ideally would stop by 3:30, but till 6 would work. And then from basically dinner time through till the bus time in the morning, 6, 7 o'clock, it would be mostly quiet outside.
All right, we're not loading any trucks, you know, after that.
So I don't see, Jeff, I don't see a reason not to put that in there.
Delivery?
Yeah. Whether they're pulling back.
Yeah, that's why I brought it up. I mean, no, we're not asking you to do anything you're not already doing, just to
Right.
clarify, because,
Yeah.
you know, like they say, you know, you have more storage, it might lead to a little more work, and then all of a sudden you get a shift, and now, geez, you can have multiple deliveries in a day, and, you know, you never know what can happen, but, I think it's reasonable, particularly where you do abut a residential neighborhood, and I think you guys are clearly trying to be, you know, amenable to their concerns as best you can. In the fact that you don't fabricate outside. As soon as you put the building out there, you know, it's not what's gonna happen tomorrow if you build this thing. It's 5, 6, 7 years from now when who knows who's gonna be, you know, on site running the thing, and they weren't part of this meeting, and to have on the record, you know, hey, you know, let's run some power out there. We could do some other fabrication out in that, out there, you know, if they wanna expand or something. We have to kinda think down the road, and that would be, I think, detrimental to the neighbors if that was something that you wanted to do. So it's just a matter of trying to get that,
Yeah.
you know, on the record, I guess.
Just a housekeeping note, I'm so sorry. Our administrative assistant is ill, but she is watching this live and she'll be taking minutes. Could folks just make sure you sign in, put your name and address? You already did? Awesome. Thank you.
I got him.
Thank you. Should I read these into the record, exhibits?
Oh, yeah. Is there anything to add?
I don't think there was anything to add at all.
Does your permit specifically mention for storage only? Do you know? Is that the kind of condition you wanna add to that?
Makes sense, right?
It depends on whether they've just already, cause that eliminates that possibility of
Good point.
possible.
Yeah, no manufacturing or fabrication.
It does. It says to install an 81 by 120 Quonset hut for storage purposes.
Go.
Alright.
Just for housekeeping, exhibits for 4 Carlton Drive, plans all drawn and named existing William and Sprague engineers of Middleton, Mass. Dated 1/15/19 and stamped 1/16/19 by Richard L. Williams, civil engineer. Exhibit 1, sheet 1 of 3 named drawing cover site plan. Exhibit 2, sheet 2 of 3 named existing conditions. Exhibit 3, sheet 3 of 3 drawing SP site plan. We didn't have any other exhibits, I don't believe.
Other questions from anybody? Come on, Paul.
I've
Let's put
spoken
it on the
enough.
motion, come on.
No, I don't have any other questions. I think that's sufficient, and to reiterate, when I know it's going to planning, that always makes me feel a little bit better that
Yep.
we're not the last stop on
Absolutely.
the process.
Yeah, like I said, you know, somebody says, well, now you got one, now everyone's gonna start popping these up everywhere, but, you know, for the record, the location here is key for me.
Yes.
The
Yeah.
site location, the arrangement on the site, and the fact that that's sitting behind your building, in a wooded area,
And it's just
again,
for storage
I've already
purposes
said
only.
it, but,
Yeah.
but for the record, you know, if this were another site.
Location matters, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I might not be as comfortable, but, as far as I'm concerned, with some of the conditions, Mr. Chairman, I think it's a reasonable request.
Yep,
Maybe
I
we can
agree.
Make some findings.
Agreed.
Extent. Want me to make a motion?
Yes, please.
Okay, Mr. Chairman.
That's what we're all waiting for.
For the address. For the application for 4 Carlton Drive, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that this board find that the accessory use, that being a Quonset hut for storage to the rear of the facility, is essential and desirable to the public convenience and welfare. The requested use will not overload any public water or other municipal systems so as to unduly subject any areas to hazards affecting health, safety, or the general welfare. The request will not impair the integrity or character of the district or the adjoining districts. That the request will not cause an excess of that particular use, which could be detrimental to the character of the neighborhood. And I move that the board grant a special permit for Carlton Drive as presented, with the following conditions. Find them all here. There will be no power feed to the new accessory storage, so the new storage facility. All fabrication shall be within the main structure. There shall be no fabrication outdoors or within the storage facility. All outdoor lighting be reviewed as part of site plan approval. Let me back up. Site plan approval will be required by the planning board. All outdoor lighting shall be reviewed as part of site plan approval. Add one more.
Limits of,
Oh, yeah, deliveries to the facility shall be limited, deliveries to and from the facility shall be limited to 6 AM to 6 PM. Got all those. Is there anything else?
This is the second. All those in favor,
Dave
or any
seconded.
discussion? All those in favor?
Does that sound good, you
Aye.
guys?
Sounds great. Thank
Aye.
you. Any opposed? None? It carries unanimously. There's a 20-day appeal period. Following 14 days, the zoning board has to file a written decision with the town clerk. Any person who exercises this right under appeal special permit does so at their own risk. Can I get a motion to close the hearing for 4 Carlton Drive?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
I need to read this really quick. So per Mass General Laws, Chapter 48, Section 9, special permits granted shall lapse within a specified period of time not more than 3 years. Shall not include such time required to pursue or await the determination of an appeal, referred to in Section 17, if a substantial use thereof is not sooner commenced except for good cause, or in the case of permit of construction, if construction is not begun by such date except for good cause. Do I need a
So
motion
don't
to?
start until you get your
Yeah.
permit and the appeal period expires.
Motion
Motion to adjourn?
No, we
do I
gotta
need to-
finish business.
Oh, sorry. Oh, that's right, gosh.
Paint the boxes for us.
Any particular color or
But green.
Camouflage.
anything with green?
No, not green.
No, they always come green.
Green?
Just touch them up.
All
A
right.
nice green,
I don't know.
like a
Ask these
forest
guys.
green, so it blends in with the woods.
Now you're learning.
I'm learning.
The planning board might have some ideas for you too, I'm sure.
I'm still a business owner.
Yeah.
All right, where are we at our business?
Motion to, do we have anything?
Yeah.
Well, I distribute, we've got the packets for hearings.
Did we approve the business meeting?
We did?
Yeah.
Yep. The minutes, yep.
Honestly, we're a little relieved. We thought it was gonna be like the front of the.
Notifications, okay. Motion to close, business.
Moved.
Freaking out.
Second.
If nothing else.
All those in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Thank you.
You don't want all that stuff out of there.
We're good.
We can lock up and